begge to er, har de ruiner, så kan de være
Now we are on the outside of the strait, where we saw that they rode between the islands on our starboard side, and they came out here where we are now. Then suddenly Hans Holmefjord, he discovered a German watchboat just before they should go to this open place. So they had to stop. They waited, and the Germans went out in the fjord, and then they continued. They crossed this bay like we will do now. The Osel was kept quite close to the shore to be in the shadow, so they were not so easy to spot from the sea. Now we cross to Kalneset, where they follow the sea, the shore in the shadows. Where Einar Evensen, Thorvald Jacobsen, Hans Holmefjord, Nils Røttingen, and Magnus K. Røttingen. We see the small Rogamelsholmen on our starboard side, and they passed behind that small island. On our starboard side we have this Rogamel, the small island. They came through the strait and kept close to the starboard side, close to the mountain side of the shore, in the shadow. And in front we have Bjørnarøy, the home from Einar Evensen. And this very evening, Christian Evensen, the father of Einar, he had joined the meeting with Ingeborg, Bjørn and Johannes Fostervoll, and he worried a bit about what Einar and his friends should do in the night. So he couldn't sleep. So he went up in the hill at Bjørnarøy, just in front of us, And then he saw the two Oselva boats coming from the starboard side, from the mountain, and crossed just in front of us now to Røttingo on the port side, and went in the shadows at Røttingo. And Christian Evensen, he saw them, and then he went back to bed and could sleep. He told his wife, everything is okay so far. Alt vel så langt, sa han på Osamål. And then he went back to sleep. And the other guys, they followed the Røttingo shadow line along the island further to Jelevika.
Bedehus, prayer house.
On our starboard side, we will see the bridge which they rode underneath. And on the right side, you see the prayer house where there lived Germans. And the Germans passed this bridge all the time. So they put two men ashore to go to look out for Germans in the area. And one of them came back and told them it was clear. And then they rowed to you see the bridge on the starboard side, and picked up these two men, the last man on the other side. So I think you know we will have problems to go under the bridge with this boat. So we will go around so we can see from the other side.
Jeg fant ikke den loven nå, men...
Significant slope to get there. It's mountains like this. It's in the between part. It's between the coastal mountains. We can see the topography. So they had to go up this here, over the top, and then hike in to where the camping is. And then this is the back down and out.
We now have the bridge close to the prayer house, which they passed underneath. And they came through this bay where we are now. So now you see it from the other side.
Men du snakker om påflytting her. Hun på en by som heter
Areas and all orphans. If you want something to eat or drink, you can order it in the boat.
Have you read Midthordland? Yeah. I've read it. It's not very
Har du fått kraften igjen?
Hva sier du?
Har du fått kraften igjen?
Ja. Jeg har møtt for lenge siden.
So the cabin is on an island. Oh, your cabin. Yeah, gotcha.
That's the little cabin. That's one that's up. Not his cabin. You have a nice cabin? We have a nice cabin.
Right? No, I'm fine.
Against Selvågen, where these guys from the Millog in Øyane, in the islands here, decided to hide them. In 1944, there was a boathouse at that place, and there was a German Gefreiter, as petty officer, who had taken this boathouse from a Norwegian and used it as a cabin. And this German officer, he was on leave in Germany, and he gave the key to a Norwegian. And this Norwegian was member of Einar Evensen Millog team. So then the Millog in Øyane used this boathouse to train with weapons to put them apart and put them together and train different things in this boathouse while this German was in Germany. So we will go as close as possible with this boat to see if we can see the ruins of this boathouse, because it was taken down straight after the World War. But I think we will see some of the ruins from the boathouse. Straight in front of us we have Selbågen, this small bay. In front of us we can see there's a small point and some stones which are the ruins of this boathouse. And they stayed in this boathouse during the nights, and early mornings they went up in Husfjellet, which is up to the left for us on the port side, up in this hill or mountain, and then they went back again and slept in the boathouse. Einar and his men, they brought them supplies, food and drink several times to this boathouse during the nights. The first morning the Canadians stayed here. They went up in the Husfjellet early in 5 o'clock in the morning. Then they suddenly was shocked because they heard some heavy firing from the German fortissiements at Røttingo with the artillery cannons. So they got shocked and thought it had something to do with them. But they learned that this was a routine of the Germans to do this shooting every morning. So they stayed here for 4 days and they got used to this Germans firing. On the 1st October, they left this boathouse, and Einar Evensen and Thorvald Jacobsen, they picked them up close to this place, and then they went with this boat of Einar Evensen, a 21 feet boat from here with 6 Canadians and 2 Norwegians out in the fjord, passing the enforcements at Røttingo. We come a little bit back to that. But of course this boat was very heavy loaded with 8 persons. So Gordon Biddle, he was sitting open. They gave him some Norwegian fisherman's clothing, and he sat together with Einar and Thorvald, and the other 5 guys was lying underneath some fishing nets and so on in the boat. And this boat, it was rigged for tuna hunting. So they had a small deck up in front, and on the deck they had a kind of a stand to put the harpoon, the gun to shoot tuna with. So they looked like they were hunting for tuna. So we will come a little bit back to that later on. So the 1st of October they left Selbågen, and Einar and Thorvald headed towards Fusa and then to Lønningdal. In the days Einar and the other Milorg men, when the Canadians were in this boathouse, they had meetings with the other Milorg men in Os, and Einar met with Magnus Hauge, who was his leader in this Western Os company in Milorg, and they discussed what to do with the Canadians. And then Magnus should take contact to the other parts of Milorg in Os, and he contacted Johan Viken and Jakob Gjelle and Helene Mowinckel Nielsen, and they discussed what to do, and they ended up that they should move the Canadians to Botnahytta, a cabin belonging to Fredrik Øvredal, between Øvredal and Rolsvåg. That will be the place we will hike on Sunday. But then they decided to move them on October the 1st in pure daylight. It was a very nice day with sun, and the sea was very calm, and they were quite, today we will call it, they were quite, what you could say, that they dared to do this in daylight. So they just passed out in front of all the Germans with no hesitation. And the Germans was used to see this kind of boats hunting for tunas. So they didn't act in the beginning, but later on they was attached by a German watchboat, and then Thorvald acted like he was seeing a tuna. He stand up on the front deck and pointing to the sea, and Einar, he turned against the German watchboat instead of turning away. So they headed against the Germans, and in only 200 meters away the Germans changed their direction and went away. So they were very, very close. And then they continued to Fusa. We will now go out the fjord, past Røttingå. We will have Røttingøy on the port side, and see some remains, ruins from the German enforcement. Up in the hill where they hide during the day. There's a little bit more of the wood nowadays than in 1944, but it was enough for them to hide. And we have on the port side Røttingå, and we will soon see some remains from the German enforcements or fortifications.
Yeah.
If you see the flagpole on this point, they built a kind of a summer house on the artillery cannon base. Port side we see the Bjørnefjord, and we see Tysnes and Rekstern, and now we are just passing Ospøy over there where Snøgg put them ashore. Lars and Haldor, they went back to Os when the Norwegian guy they met at Ospøy and the 6 Canadians, they hid up in Ospøy and waited for Sverre Østervold to come and take them on board. So after a short while, Sverre came and he brought them from Ospøy and around to Kjøpmannshomen, the way we are going now. Så de skriver jo det at de så Folgefondet der, og så innover land der. And in the front of the ferry is a white house. That is the house of Sverre Østervold, where he lived and have a shop at the seaside. On the starboard side we now see the house of Sverre close to the ferry. Holmen, straight on the starboard, and we will go around it. And there was a small shed where they are putting the Canadian and this Norwegian, and they had to stay there to wait for Kjøpmannshomen to come from Shetland. And the Norwegian arrived at Kjøpmannshomen in the afternoon, in the evening, the October 10th. And in the night, in October 12th, they were brought from Kjøpmannshomen to Følgesvågen by Sverre. So we will now go from Kjøpmannshomen to Følgesvågen. And they went in the dark night, and of course Sverre was very well known in this area, so he could go with his boat without any light or any help.
Så akkurat der, sånn der gikk det.
Ja, nå kommer det gamle kommunesenteret
Ja,
i
så
Storfram.
Frem til 50-tallet så var her kommunesenteret. Kommunestyret var her, og banken var her, og
Bakeriet og alt.
bakeriet.
Dette var midt i kommunen, så det var der. Ja, ja.
Close to this small island on our port side, Vigra and Kjøpmannshomen was at the shore, and they put some of the load they brought from Shetland in the land, and then they got this net to cover, and they waited here until Sverre came with the Canadian airmen. So this last part of our tour we have used almost the same way as Sverre did from Kjøpmannshomen. So this is the place where Vigra was waiting for them before they went out and headed to Shetland. And that will be among the islands in front of us. And then they turned west out in the open sea. So we will now turn around and find our way back to Os. So the Shetland Larsen boats used this area to put ashore a lot of ammunition and weapons on their tours to the Norwegian coast. So we see it's a lot of islands and very narrow ways to go around with your boat, and they did it in the night, in the dark night, no lights at all. And in this area as well, there was several German watch boats patrolling, so they had to avoid these as well as taking care of not going into these islands. So it's very difficult and very dangerous place to go around in the dark night. You will see that this area looks almost like crossing from Vancouver to Victoria. It's quite the same, islands and fjords.
Litt mer på siden av vinden, vet du, så hadde du ikke gått an.
Håpløst. Nei, da måtte vi jo rett og slett tatt de ombord inn med Bleikjølen.
Jeg sa at vi kunne kjørt i disse båtene, småbåtene våre inn til Alhjem.
Til Halhjem nå, så har jeg min bil stående like bortenfor der. Og jeg vil da kunne ta med meg 4 stykker av kanadierne ned på parkeringsplassen der vi parkerte i dag, så de får hente bilene. Jeg kan kjøre flere ganger rett og frem, men det hadde vært veldig fint hvis det at noen andre også kunne hjelpe til med en transport ned til den der under høyspentlinjen hvor vi satte bilene. Så, og hvis noen kunne være så kjekke og hjelp der, så står Bjarne Øvreide, han står nede med kaffebaren der og tar opp navnet hvis noen vil hjelpe oss på det der. Takk skal du ha.
This is for you. This is the RCAF. It's a point, it's RCAF. And this side is, it's a legacy of heritage. This is World War I roundel, World War II roundel, and the current. Okay. Super. You're very welcome. I hope this is something for all of us. I hope it's good for you. Thank you so much.
Filma noe nå. Kan ta litt ekstra.
ni hørte. Yes, we will now disembark from Midthordland. And first I think we should give a very warm applause to Arne, our captain, and the crew at Midthordland. Thank you very much for the trip. And then a short message to the Canadians. Tomorrow we will also meet at the Esso petrol station in Os at 10 o'clock sharp. And then we will lead you to the same parking as today, close to Ove's house. So for the Canadians, tomorrow at 10 o'clock sharp at the Esso petrol station. And we will lead you out to Høyland.
Ha det, Svein. Var det greit, Svein?
How fine.
Pappa är så super.
Jag måste sätta igen det.
Ja, jag ska bli med. Jag ska. Ja, det går greit.
Just a little slow.
Getting up there. It's hard right now. Thank you. Thank you. I do. Lift to the car.
Yeah, lift to the car over there.
Who's the
I have a car.
But you could
But
follow
we
them.
can. We have a car here.
You have it down here.
Yes, but we have to get other stuff there. So can we follow you?